Hello everybody, this is Gareth Cahoon Speaks back here with another video. I'd like you to hit the subscribe bar, give me a thumbs up if you like the video, or hit the notification bell to be notified when I post my next post, or otherwise you can look me up on my ministry and the charities that I support at garethcahoon3 at gmail.com on PayPal. This one here is about open heart surgery, how an Israeli non-profit changed the heart of Muslim influencer Mustapha Azerjani, a Christian non-profit that brings children from countries considered adversaries to Israel hospitals for life-saving heart surgery, has not only helped heal physical hearts but also, in some cases, fostered lasting personal transformations, including that of a Muslim man from Morocco who has become a prominent advocate for Israel and the Jewish people. Writer and photographer Mustapha Azerjani told All Israel News how the encounter with a young girl named Hiba, who received medical treatment in Israel, changed his life. In 2010, I had a friend from a small village called Mizmiz, tucked into the mountains not far from Marrakesh. Ezra explained one day he invited me to visit to share a meal with a local family. There was nothing unusual about it in Morocco. Being invited into someone's home, especially in a village, is one of the most natural things in the world. We ate together, shared food, spoke about ordinary things, life, family, and the rhythm of the village, and then at some point, and my attention was drawn to their daughter Ava. As her journey continued, there was something about her that made you pause, a certain fragility in her presence, something that told you she had been through more than a child should. Her mother began to speak about her not in a dramatic way, but in the quiet honesty of a mother who had carried fear and relief in the same breath. She told me that Hiba had suffered from a serious heart condition, that her life had once been hanging by a thread, and then came the sentence that in that moment felt almost impossible to process. She told me that Hiba had undergone heart surgery in Israel. The non-profit behind the narrative breaking moment is Shavata Kim, named after the first verse in Psalms 133. How good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. Shavata Kim. The psalm promises blessings wherever there is brotherhood, which is something the staff hangs on to as they extend love and brotherhood to Israel's enemies through medical care. Shaved Akim began bringing children from the Gaza Strip in 1994, but over time expanded its operations to include countries across the Middle East, including Azerbaijani's home country of Morocco. The Israeli government covers part of the cost, while Shaved Akim raises the remainder through donations. I remember the stillness that followed inside me, as Gianni recalled. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, but the kind that comes when something you believed to be solid begins to crack, being because everything I had been taught, everything I had absorbed about Israel and about Jews had prepared me to expect something entirely different. But this woman, this amazing mother from a remote village, had no reason to shape her story for me. She had no political agenda, no ideology to defend. She was simply telling me what had happened to her child, and what she described was not hostility, not rejection, but loving care. She spoke about doctors who treated her daughter with dedication, about a system that received them, about moments where she felt respected even as a Muslim woman wearing her hijab in a place I had always imagined would reject her, he continued. There was no bitterness in her voice, only gratitude, a kind of quiet, grounded gratitude that comes from having seen your child survive. And that is why, when something shifted inside me, Ezra Gianni said. 16 years later, Ezra Gianni made a video describing how this encounter resulted in a paradigm shift that would change his life without mentioning his name. He described the events surrounding her surgery and how it impacted him deeply, saying it was one human moment that undid a lifetime of assumptions. Although he had grown up hearing negative narratives about Israel and the Jewish people, Azerbaiani also recalled family stories of a time when his relatives lived in close knit communities alongside Jewish neighbours. My parents and grandparents would speak about a time when Morocco Jews were not others, but simply neighbours, friends, part of the same rhythm of life. My grandmother, in particular, had a way of remembering that felt almost sacred. She would speak of Jewish families who lived along side by side with them, Muslims with open doors, food shared, joys and sorrows carried together, he said, adding, without realizing it, I carried both legacies inside me. Reflecting on the seminal incident in 2010, Ezergiani explains that it was at the beginning of his journey rather than the tidy conclusion. It was not a loud transformation, it was not immediately clear, it was something more unsettling, the beginning of doubt, because when a lived experience stands in direct contradiction to everything you think you know, you're left with a choice. You can dismiss it or you can follow it. That day, in a maze, sitting in the humble home, listening to a mother speak about people who saved her daughter's life, I realised the story I had inherited was incomplete. And once you see that, even for a moment, you cannot fully return to what you believed before. That was how it began, not with an argument, not with a book, but with a human story, and sometimes that is all it takes to change the direction of a life, he said. Shaved Akim was greatly encouraged when they saw Ezergiani's video and joined the Dots. Jonathan Miles, one of the founding members of the organisation, wrote in the newsletter, since October 7th, the conventional wisdom in wartime Israel is that it is foolish to save Gazan children since they'll just grow up to become terrorists. Evidence that hearts truly can be changed could help protect the Jewish people from the hardening of their own hearts. He contended, we want our visiting families to know that we're motivated by God's free and unconditional love, which He first all poured out on us through the Messiah Yeshua. There are no strings attached to our help, and these precious children are not pawns in public relations battle. He added, both Miles and Azergiani emphasised that this story is not a clear cut or binary one. The truth is often more complex than the narratives we inherit, and that identify is not something we simply receive. It is something we must examine, question, and sometimes rebuild. Ezergiani emphasized, this afternoon in the mountains did not suddenly replace one belief with another. It planted a question that refused to leave me, and a question when they are honest are not gentle, they disturb, they linger. They ask you to look again at things you once accepted without hesitation. Ezergiani spent years reading and researching first on Jewish history in Morocco and later more broadly. He described a gradual process of moving away from antagonism towards a more nuanced understanding and appreciation of the Jewish state with all its complexities, which he now draws on when speaking to those who are still influenced by anti Israel narratives. At first, I tried to hold on to what I had always believed. It is easier that way. This is a kind of comfort and certainty, even when that certainty is built on incomplete truths. But the story of his family kept returning to me, not as an argument, but as a presence, a symbol, undeniable contradiction. And slowly I realized that if I was serious about understanding the world, I could not ignore it. Ezergiani is now president of the Moroccan Israeli Friendship Association, with a social media presence reaching tens of thousands of people. As part of the Muslim Leaders Initiative and later on the trip organised by the Israeli consulate in Atlanta, part of the Southeast influential visit, Art Largiani has been making ties with the Jewish people now for years. One simple act of kindness can change a human heart. Shalom, Maranatha, and Hallelujah.